August 16, 1942, Port Moresby, New Guinea. The tropical heat is suffocating, a wet blanket that clings to the skin of Major Paul "Pappy" Gunn as he stares at the nose of a B-25 Mitchell bomber. Sweat drips from his chin, landing in the dust of the airstrip. Around him, mechanics of the 5th Air Force work in shorts and boots, their torsos bare against the relentless sun. Gunn isn't looking at the bomber with admiration, he's looking at it with frustration. He kicks a tire, the sound dull and flat. "It's not enough," he mutters. "We're dropping rocks from the moon hoping to hit a tin can." Beside him, a young mechanic wipes grease from his hands with a rag. "Sir?" "Standard bombing runs," Gunn growls, gesturing to the sky. "We fly at 6,000 feet. We drop iron. The Japanese ships turn, they weave. We miss. We come home. We waste gas." He climbs up onto the wing, peering into the bombardier's glass nose, the greenhouse.
It's designed for high-altitude observation, for a man to sit with a Norden bomb sight and calculate trajectory. It is a tool for a gentleman's war, for strategic targets in Europe where factories don't move. But here, in the Southwest Pacific, the war is against shipping. It's against destroyers that cut through the water at 30 knots and barges that hide in the jungle mangroves. Gunn, a former naval aviator with a tinkerer's soul and a brawler's heart, knows the math isn't working. General George Kenney, the new commander of the 5th Air Force, has demanded results. The Japanese supply lines to New Guinea and Rabaul remain unbroken. If they can't sink the ships, they lose the island. If they lose the island, Australia is next. "Jack," Gunn calls down to the mechanic. "What happens if we take out the bombardier?" The mechanic blinks. "Then who drops the bombs, Major?" "The pilot," Gunn says, a dangerous glint in his eye. "But he doesn't drop them from the clouds.
He drops them right down the smokestack. The concept is radical. It borders on insanity. The B-25 is a medium bomber, a heavy, twin-engine beast designed for level flight, not for dogfighting or low-level attacks. But Gunn envisions something else. He sees the glass nose not as an observation deck, but as a wasted space, a vulnerability. "Get the torch," Gunn orders, hopping down from the wing. "The torch, sir?" "We're going to seal up the nose," Gunn says, walking toward the supply tent with a stride that suggests he's already won the argument he hasn't yet had with his superiors. "And then we're going to pack so many 50 caliber machine guns in there that when the pilot pulls the trigger, the plane stops in mid-air." It is the birth of the commerce destroyer. In the humid hangars of Australia and New Guinea, unauthorized modifications begin. The bombardier's crawlway is removed. The delicate bomb sight is crated up.
In its place, Gunn and his mechanics begin mounting heavy Browning M2 50 caliber machine guns. First 2, then 4 in the nose alone. They strap more guns in pods on the sides of the fuselage. They are turning a bomber into a flying shotgun. The pilots are skeptical. They are trained to fly straight and level, to trust their crew. Now, Gunn is telling them to dive at enemy destroyers, to fly so low they'll feel the salt spray, and to act as their own gunners. "You want us to do what?" Lieutenant Ed Larner asks during a briefing, staring at the diagram of the modified B-25. "I want you to skip the bombs," Gunn replies, "like skipping a stone on a pond. Come in at mast height, release at 300 yards. The bomb hits the water, bounces, and slams into the side of the ship." "And the anti-aircraft fire?" Larner asks. "They'll shred us." Gunn taps the drawing of the nose, now bristling with 8 forward-firing barrels. "Not if you shred them first. You suppress the deck.
You kill the gunners before they can aim. You turn that ship into a slaughterhouse, and then you sink it." The men look at each other. It sounds suicidal. It sounds impossible. It sounds exactly like the kind of thing that might just work.
March 2nd, 1943. the Huon Gulf, north of New Guinea. The ocean is a calm, deceptive blue as the Japanese convoy moves slowly toward Leh. 8 destroyers escorting 8 troop transports, a lifeline of reinforcements intended to bolster the failing Japanese positions on New Guinea. Aboard the flagship, Rear Admiral Masatomi Kimura feels cautious but confident. He knows the Americans are out there, but he expects the usual, high-altitude B-17s dropping bombs that mostly splash harmlessly into the sea, or perhaps torpedo attacks that can be dodged with sharp maneuvering. He does not know that the 5th Air Force has spent months practicing skipping stones. At 10 a.m., the horizon darkens. It isn't a storm. It is a swarm. Lieutenant Ed Larner, flying a modified B-25 named Sag Harbor Express, leads the formation. He pushes the yoke forward, dropping out of the sky not to level off at 5,000 feet, but to scream down toward the wave tops. The altimeter unwinds. 1,000 feet, 500 feet, 200 feet.
"Arm all guns," Larner commands over the intercom. The vibration of the twin Wright Cyclone engines rattles the airframe as the bomber levels out at barely 50 feet above the water. On the bridge of the Japanese destroyer Arashio, lookouts scream warnings. They see the twin-tailed bombers approaching, but the angle is wrong. They are too low. Are they launching torpedoes? No, the bay doors are closed. The Japanese captains order hard turns, expecting the bombers to pull up. They don't pull up. Larner lines up on the lead destroyer. At 1,000 yards, he squeezes the trigger on the control column. The effect is instantaneous and terrifying. 8.50 caliber machine guns in the nose and fuselage pods erupt simultaneously. The recoil slows the 20,000-pound bomber by nearly 10 knots. A stream of tracers, thick as a fire hose, lashes out at the Arashio. On the destroyer's deck, chaos reigns. The Japanese anti-aircraft crews, exposed and vulnerable, are not just suppressed. They are vaporized. The heavy slugs tear through steel plating, shatter glass on the bridge, and turn human beings into mist. The commerce destroyer is living up to its name. "Bombs away!" Larner shouts. He is so close he can see the terror on the faces of the sailors. He releases 2 500-pound bombs. They don't fall, they glide. They hit the water, skip once, twice, and slam squarely into the side of the Arashio. Larner hauls back on the yoke, the B-25 roaring over the destroyer's mast with feet to spare. Behind him, a 5-second delay fuse ticks down. Then, detonation. The Arashio shudders as her hull is blown open. But Larner is just the first. Behind him come wave after wave of B-25s and A-20 Havocs. The Japanese formation breaks. This is not a bombing run. It is a massacre. The Japanese pilots flying cover and zeros dive to intercept, but they are shocked to find the bombers fighting back with nose guns, turning head-on into the fighters. A bomber is supposed to be prey. These are predators. The sea churns with explosions. Transport ships, packed with thousands of soldiers, are raked from stem to stern by machine gun fire before being gutted by skip bombs. The water burns with oil and debris. Admiral Kimura watches his convoy disintegrate. He has no tactics for this. How do you dodge a bomber that acts like a fighter? How do you defend against a plane that uses its own momentum to drive bombs through your hull? By the time the smoke clears on March 4th, the Battle of the Bismarck Sea is over. All 8 transports are sunk. 4 destroyers are at the bottom of the ocean. Nearly 3,000 Japanese soldiers and sailors are dead. General Kenny sends a message to Washington. We have won the war in the air. But for the pilots of the strafing B-25s, this is just the rehearsal. The real prize, the fortress of Rabaul, still waits in the north, bristling with flak and defiant pride. They have proven the concept.
Now they have to take it into the heart of the dragon. October 12th, 1943.
Simpson Harbor, Rabaul. If New Guinea was the testing ground, Rabaul is the graduate exam. This is the empire's Gibraltar of the South Pacific, a massive caldera harbor ringed by 5 active volcanoes, defended by nearly 400 anti-aircraft guns and hundreds of fighters. It is the hub of Japanese naval power in the region, a place Allied pilots speak of in hushed, fearful tones. To attack Rabaul is to fly into a bowl of fire. Major Jock Hannibry, a legend among the strafer pilots, sits in the cockpit of Notre Dame de Victoire. The mission briefing was simple: destruction. The 5th Air Force is launching a massive coordinated assault to smash Japanese air power and shipping in the harbor. Radio silence until the target, Hannibry reminds his crew. Stay low, stay fast. The formation of B-25s hugs the coastline of New Britain, flying so low the prop wash kicks up spray from the surf. They use the terrain to mask their approach, slipping through the valleys like thieves. As they crest the final ridge and drop into the harbor, the world explodes. Flak, 12 o'clock! The sky above Rabaul turns black with bursting shells. Tracers from the ground weave a net of neon death. But the B-25s don't climb above it, they dive under it. Hannibry pushes his throttle to the firewall. The Mitchell screams toward the shipping anchored in the harbor. He sees a freighter, the Keisho Maru, looming ahead. Lining up, Hannibry grunts, fighting the turbulence. The Japanese gunners on the freighter open fire, but their aim is high. They are tracking for standard bombers. They aren't ready for a plane coming at them at eye level. Hannibry triggers the nose guns. The vibration shakes his teeth. The stream of 50 caliber rounds walks up the water and smashes into the freighter's superstructure. He sees the bridge disintegrate, debris flying into the water.
The return fire from the ship falters, then stops. Pickle! He releases his bombs. They skip across the harbor water, thud, splash, and bury themselves into the Keisho Maru's waterline. Hannibry banks hard to the left, his wingtip missing the crane of another ship by yards. Behind him, a geyser of water and steel erupts as the freighter breaks its back. But the air is filled with zeros. The Japanese fighters, desperate to protect their fleet, dive on the bombers. "Bandit, 6 o'clock high!" the turret gunner screams. This is where the B-25's new identity shines. In a normal bomber, this would be a death sentence. But these pilots have learned to fight. Hannibry hauls the heavy bomber around, turning into the attack. The Japanese pilot, expecting a fleeing target, suddenly finds himself staring down the barrels of 8 machine guns. The Commerce destroyer is now a dogfighter. Hannibry fires a short burst. The Zero flies right into the wall of lead.
Its wing shears off, and it cartwheels into the volcano's slope. All across the harbor, the scene repeats. B-25s rampage through the anchorage, strafing airfields, skipping bombs into destroyers, and leaving a trail of burning wreckage. They fly through clouds of volcanic ash and black smoke, their aluminum skins punctured by shrapnel, engines coughing. It is chaotic, brutal, close-quarters combat. A B-25 from the 345th Bomb Group takes a direct hit to an engine, but keeps strafing, its pilot holding the trigger down until he crashes into a warehouse on the docks. As Hannibry pulls out of the harbor, climbing over the rim of the caldera, he looks back. Rabaul is burning. Ships are listing, sinking, exploding. The invincible fortress has been breached, not by high-altitude precision, but by a brawl. They have proven that no harbor is safe, no ship is secure. The strafers have changed the rules of engagement. But the war isn't over, and the Japanese are adopting.
They are reinforcing their anti-aircraft batteries, digging in deeper. And for the crews of the B-25s, the cost of flying at 0 altitude is starting to mount. Every mission is a roll of the dice, and the house eventually wins.
February 15th, 1944, Cavieing, New Ireland. The euphoria of Rabaul has faded into the grinding reality of attrition. The strafing tactics are effective, devastatingly so, but they demand a blood price. Flying a medium bomber at 250 miles per hour, 20 feet off the ground, into the teeth of prepared defenses is a game of inches. Lieutenant James Duck Swan of the 500th Bomb Squadron feels the fatigue deep in his bones. The adrenaline that fueled the early raids has been replaced by a cold, professional dread. Every time they go down to the deck, the Japanese throw more metal into the air. Today's target is a supply dump and shipping lane at Cavieing, a critical staging point north of Rabaul. The intelligence photos show new flag towers, concrete pillboxes. They are waiting. Watch the crossfire, Swan warns his co-pilot as the formation descends. They've got 20mm cannons on the ridge. The B-25, nicknamed Apache Princess, roars over the jungle canopy.
The foliage blurs into a green smear. Swan spots a coastal freighter trying to make a run for open water. Target acquired, going in. He drops the nose. The familiar vibration of the forward guns shudders through the airframe. Tracers reach out, hammering the freighter's deck. But this time the return fire is different. It's not just panicked small arms. It's coordinated, heavy, automatic cannon fire from the shore batteries. Thump, thump, crack. Rounds slam into the fuselage. The sound is like a hammer striking a tin roof. Right engine losing pressure, the co-pilot shouts, his hand flying to the mixture controls. Hold it together, Swan grits out. Almost there. He releases the skip bombs. They bounce true, striking the freighter amidships. But as he pulls up, a 40mm shell tears through the left wing, shredding the hydraulic lines. Fluid sprays across the cowling. The Apache Princess lurches violently. We're hit bad, losing hydraulics.
Swan fights the yoke, his muscles straining against the dying aircraft. They are too low to bail out, too low to glide. The jungle below is an unforgiving carpet of trees and vines. Brace for impact. The B-25 clips the top of a palm tree, slews sideways, and plows into the swampy undergrowth. The sound of tearing metal screams over the engines, followed by a sudden, crushing silence. Swan wakes up to the smell of avgas and mud. He is hanging sideways in his harness. The cockpit is smashed. He fumbles for the release buckle, his hands slick with blood. "Check in," he croaks. A groan from the back. The top turret gunner is alive. The co-pilot is slumped unconscious. They are miles behind enemy lines. This is the other side of the strafer war. If you survive the crash, the jungle or the Japanese patrols will try to finish the job. For the next 3 days, Swan and his surviving crew evade capture.
They move only at night, wading through leech-infested swamps, listening to the sounds of trucks hunting them. They are no longer gods of the air. They are prey. Back at the base, the empty bunks speak louder than any after-action report. The commerce destroyers are sinking ships at a rate that naval strategists thought impossible, but they are losing crews just as fast. The Japanese have learned to lower their aim. They've strung cables between barrage balloons. They've turned their ships into floating porcupines of anti-aircraft guns. Yet, the 5th Air Force doesn't stop. The modifications continue. Now they are adding 75mm cannons, actual field artillery pieces, into the noses of B-25s. Poppy Guns experiment has become the doctrine of the Pacific. As Swan finally stumbles onto a beach to be picked up by a PBY Catalina rescue plane, he looks back at the smoke rising from Cavieing. He knows he'll be back in a cockpit in a week. The strategy is ruthless, costly, and terrifying.
But it is strangling the empire. The shipping lanes are empty. The garrisons are starving. The B-25s have turned the ocean into a graveyard.
August 9th, 1945. the skies over Kyushu, Japan. The war has come full circle. What started in the desperate heat of New Guinea has now reached the doorstep of the Japanese home islands. The B-25 Mitchells, once makeshift gunships cobbled together with stolen parts and ingenuity, are now mass-produced predators, the J-model strafers with solid noses built at the factory to carry Pappy Gunn's lethal vision. Captain Robert Railroad Miller looks down at the Tsushima Strait. The water is gray and choppy. Below him, the targets are no longer massive convoys or capital ships. Those are gone, sunk in Rabaul, in the Bismarck Sea, in the Philippines. The Imperial Japanese Navy has ceased to exist as a fighting force. Now, the targets are fishing junks, small coastal luggers, anything that floats. The blockade is total. Radar picks up a small convoy, 10 miles north, the navigator calls out. Looks like 2 picket boats in a barge. It feels almost unfair. Miller's B-25 packs 50 caliber machine guns firing forward. He carries rockets under the wings now, more accurate than the skip bombs of 43. The evolution of the gunship is complete. "Let's finish it," Miller says. He rolls the bomber over and dives. The Japanese sailors on the small boats look up. They don't even man their guns. They know what this silhouette means. It is the Grim Reaper of the Pacific. Miller fires a short burst, just a warning, then walks the tracers onto the engine block of the lead boat. It explodes in a ball of splintered wood. He pulls up, not even bothering with bombs. The rockets from his wingmen obliterate the barge. It is over in seconds. As they turn back toward Okinawa, the radio crackles. All stations, cease fire immediately." Miller frowns, tapping his headset. "Repeat?" "The Japanese government has communicated intent to surrender. Hostilities are suspended. Return to base." The cockpit goes silent. The roar of the engines seems to soften.
Miller looks out over the wing at the sun dipping toward the horizon. He thinks of Ed Larner, of the Apache Princess, of the hundreds of boys who skipped stones into the sides of destroyers and never came back. He thinks of Pappy Gunn, the mad genius who looked at a glass nose and saw a gun turret. They did it. They took a medium bomber designed for level flight and turned it into the most feared tactical weapon of the war. They cut the arteries of an empire, ship by ship, barge by barge, until there was nothing left to sink. The B-25 banks gently, turning away from Japan. The guns are cold. The bomb bay is empty. Below them, the ocean is finally, peacefully quiet.